Hello, this is one of a number of Peter Pig AK-47 videos. This first video is going to be talking about the table and the scenery. Now, if you've got nice scenery and a nice looking table, it makes the game much more enjoyable. I personally like my stuff to look nice, usable but nice and enjoyable. So here's how it goes. First of all, AK's played on a 5 by 3 table, marked in the 6-inch squares. Now here I've just used little dots. These little dots are at 6-inch intervals, don't have to be too exact. So I've got a cloth, put some dots at 6-inch intervals, and there's the grid. So there's a square, there's a square, there's a square, there's a square. That means things move from square to square. No fussing about. Now, let's talk about scenery mainly. Scenery in AK-47 is usually marked out in pairs of squares. We tend to use templates. So here's a template laid in a pair of squares. Now, the template shows the scenery. So this is some jungle. I'll put some model trees on it. Here we go. Now, the great thing is that when you use a template, you can move the trees around, which means you can put enough trees on it for it to look really good. Now here, I put on 6 trees, which looks really nice. It looks like a nice bit of jungle. Now, if the troops want to move through it, I can move a tree around because I know where the scenery is. So there's a jungle piece. It looks nice, it's interesting, and occupies 2 very distinct squares. A square either is jungle or it isn't. It's not a little bit of various things. Now, if people don't want to use templates, that's fine. We can take the template away. There it is, moved. And I can just place the trees inside the 2 squares. It still creates the same aspect of the game. So there it is. We know that these 2 squares have got wood or trees in them. And once again, I can move them around if I like. We use templates because we like doing that, but that's still perfectly acceptable if you want to look really authentic. So there is a piece of jungle or template. All templates occupy 2 squares. So this one, made by S&A Scenics, is 12 inches by 6 inches. That's the jungle. I'll move that to one side. Next we have hills. These aren't mighty hills you can see over things because it's such a small area the table represents. Now, this is a gentle hill. It's a nice hill. Put in 2 squares, it's a nice gentle hill. It doesn't slow anyone up, but it obstructs line of sight. Next thing. Now, we've got more of a rectangular template here, which is very nice. It doesn't have to be rectangular, but there it is. Now, there's 2 types of buildings in AK-47. There's solid buildings, ones that are made of block, brick, that sort of thing. So therefore we use these. These are Peter Pig models of solid buildings. There we go. Once again, I can put quite a few models on it. So it looks nice. They don't have to stay within the squares because the template marks it out. So I could do this. I could join some up. You get the idea. Also, I do little bits of scatter. So because this is a slightly posher village, they've got an outside privy. Ooh. And the other side of the road, you talk to them, they've also got an outside privy, which is nice. This is a solid building template because the buildings are made of block. They're much more, well, solid. The next category of buildings is scattered buildings. Now, scattered buildings, we've got to confiscate the privies now. They don't get those. Scattered buildings are what you might refer to as shanties. Now, here are some shanty buildings. Lovely Peter Pig ones. Now, once again, they can be put anywhere you like to make the template look interesting. That's the joy of this gridded system. No one cares whether there's a window here, a door there. It's not a skirmish game. It's a war game using armies. Therefore, this is just described as a shanty building area. Shanty buildings aren't particularly well made. Bullets can pierce them, so that counts as scattered buildings. They're not very good. Alternatively, instead of using these shanty models, which look lovely, you could use traditional huts, which are still evident in some parts of Africa. There we go. They still count as scattered buildings, but it's the look of the game that's crucial. And there we go, got some huts there. I've got more, don't know where they are, but anyway, that's scattered buildings. Once again, it's template, 2 squares. You can use different size squares in the game. These are 6-inch squares because 6-inch squares are easy to draw. But if you want to do 5-inch squares or 7-inch squares, it just doesn't matter. It's just a grid. The whole table is 10 squares by 6 squares, 10 by 6. Therefore, we use a 5 foot by 3 foot table, which gives space for all your junk around the edge. Next thing is this. Here's a template. Now we're going to have a gully. These are Peter Pig, good old Peter Pig gully markers. This means it's a gully or some sunken ground, an old riverbed. Troops in this cannot be shot at and can't shoot out. Of course, they can see out a little bit and do a little bit of shooting, but it's not enough for effective shooting in or effective shooting out. So this is like gullies, dried riverbeds, wadi, all that sort of odds and ends you might find, big dips in the ground. These are just markers because we can't drill into the table. Having said that, mortars can shoot in or out of this. High explosive can shoot into it, no problem at all. But effective shooting isn't possible for a unit inside this. They can't all line up along the edge, stick all their heads up and then shoot out from there. That's not how it works. There's the gully. Next type of piece. Now, rough hills are an important part of wargame scenery. There we go. That's a rough hill. This particular one's got some texture on it to show it's rough. But you could show it's rough by putting some little odds and ends on it, little bits of brick or stuff like that. Now, the rough hill doesn't give any cover, but it really slows things down. This is a sort of hill that you'd have a puff to walk up. And you wouldn't be able to walk in a straight line. You'd have to follow the ridges, move around some rocks, that sort of thing. That's a rough hill. Very nasty. Horses and things have a really hard time on it. Vehicles could probably make it over because most AK vehicles are quite rugged vehicles, but it'd be really slowed down. Therefore, it costs them a lot to exit it. Anyway, they're the main types of scenery in AK-47. Now, each player will bring some templates with them, so both players contribute to the game. We don't want games where one player has set up everything, he decides the scenario, chooses the armies, lays out the scenery. There's no point in the other chap being there. He might just say, well, how'd the game turn out? Both players contribute, both players bring scenery. And in the AK game, there's limits on what you can use. So, up to 2 of any type. So you could bring 2 rough hills, 1 shanty town, 2 jungle, etc, etc. That's scenery in AK-47. Just to mention some extra information about solid buildings. Now, buildings, as we all know, tend to lie on roads. It'd be most unusual to have a road in one place and the buildings in somewhere different. So solid buildings and roads must be attached. So in AK-47, if there's a road, and I've got a cloth road here. There we go. Here's a road. If there's a road, a building template, a solid building template, must overlap a road. It can't just be off on its own somewhere. There we go. And there's the solid buildings placed on it. Now, the point of this, I'll move it over a little bit. The point of this, if there's a road that's going to restrict where buildings are going to be. A road must have the buildings on the road. Notice the template overlaps with one square, not with the other. You're not allowed to put the template lengthways, like so. There we go, there's the template laid down. You can't have it like this, purely because it doesn't give much space for model buildings to be deployed. You just about get away with it, but you just don't do it. So, solid buildings are what we call tabbed. Half on the road, half off the road. Conversely, every other template doesn't cross the road. People don't tend to build roads for the only bit of jungle there is, or the only rough hill there is. That's not how geography works. So, solid buildings must cross the road. If you want a bit more fun with your game, and we sometimes do something to make it look nice, instead of a road we use a railway. It has the same effect. Here we are, here's some railway bits. It's the same rules as a road, but it just looks nice. These are bits of HOM railway. This not N gauge is much bigger than N gauge and smaller than HO. So it's HO little m, HOM gauge. This is strips of it cut into 1 foot lengths and stuck on a bit of green plastic. So that's a railway. It still counts as a road in the game, but it just looks a little bit different. So road and railway, the buildings must be tabbed. They must be on it. And don't forget, in some African places, the railway does run right past people's houses, which is upsetting for them, but that's the way that it can work in these places. Now, that's scenery in AK, and that's a special extra bit about what we call solid buildings, which are good of good saving value, and they're quite hard to get troops out of if they're sat in them. Now I'm going to have a quick chat about moving troops through scenery. Scenery is important for defence, but it's also important for its effects upon movement. Now here's how it goes. In AK, you pay extra points to get out of scenery, not to go into it. Troops are difficult to reorder and get coming out the far side than they are to just say run in and get cover. Now, I'll move the building around so things are really clear. I'll put in 2 foot bases. Remember, AK is not a skirmish game. Things operate in groups. Now, although that's 3 figures, it doesn't represent 3 men. That represents about 30 men. Because it's a battle. It's not just individual men. So there's none of this, I shoot from this window, this man's got a knife, this man's tripped over. So these 3 represent about 80 men. No, sorry, about 30 men, I'm sorry. But they represent groups of men. So your army on the tabletop represents a battalion with some bits and pieces. Anyway, here are some bases of infantry. There's 2 what we call foot bases. I'm also going to put in a mortar base to show how heavy weapons work, and an RCL, or a recoilless rifle. They're weapon teams. I'll put in another foot base. My, that's a busy old square. Right, here it goes. Now, troops have points to do things with. To come out of scenery costs 2 points for a foot base. So if this foot base is here, there he is, he's just outside the scenery. I'll move these out of the way for the moment, just for clarity. So here are 2 foot bases, bless them. You can see them just at the very bottom of the picture. They're waiting to go in. So they're in a square here. Remember, there's no measuring, makes life much easier. For 1 point, they move in. That's 1 point. Solid buildings and nasty scenery cost 2 points to get out. So 2 more, they get out. And that's cost them 1, 2, 3. So 3 points to get to there. They could, however, have started in the building. There we go. And paid 2 points to go into the next building square. It's square by square. And they could pay another 2 points to move out. There we go. I spent 4 points. Foot bases do not benefit from the road because infantry don't just walk down the middle of a road. That's not very wise at all. They come out the cover. So if this large formation, let's say this was 50 men, they wouldn't all march down the centre of the road. Well, if they did, they'd be very foolish. So you pay to exit, not to enter. So it costs 2 points to come out of cover, only 1 to go in. Now, typically on a dice, you might roll, say, a 4. So you can start here, and they might go 1 point, 2, 3 points, and 1 more point, they can move over to this open square there. That'd be 4 points of movement. However, they can also use points to remove casualties, to get rid of pinning results, to shoot, do all sorts of other things. So those action points do lots of things with it. That's movement. Now let's look at a tank. Here we go. There's the very popular T-55 battle tank. Very popular in Africa. There it is. Now, tanks are moving for 1. Marvellous. Vehicles don't have direction to them because they represent a group of vehicles. That's probably about 4 tanks. So don't bother saying which is the side armour, which way is you turn, that sort of stuff. That's only 1 to go in. But vehicles need 4 to get out the other side. So there's 1 to go in and 4 more to exit. That costs him 5 points to do that. So vehicles in solid buildings and jungle, it really is hard work for them. They'd be much wiser to avoid it. But vehicles can use a road. So 1 point, 2 point, etc, etc. And that's how scenery works. Let's look at some other types of scenery. I'll take the tank to one side. There's my foot bases. I'll move the solid buildings out of the way. There we go. I'll take the road out of the way because roads and solid buildings can only interact with each other. Done. Let's take something else like a nice gentle hill. Here we go. There's a nice gentle hill. Lovely. Now, a gentle hill doesn't slow anything up at all. You can still see the squares. There's a little dot there. So there's a square, etc, etc. This tank, Mr. Tank, comes along. This costs him 1 point, 2 point, 3 point, 4 point. It's very cheap for a tank to go over a gentle hill. So 1 point, 2 point. It's nothing extra for leaving a gentle hill. These foot bases, 1 point, 2 point, no problem at all. So gentle hill doesn't slow people up. Now, some things don't slow people up, but still give a little bit of cover. I'll show what I mean. Here is some scattered buildings. I use this template because it's handy. Now here's some shanty buildings. There we go. Notice shanty buildings, there's no road because shanty buildings don't have roads going through them. So in this game, the roads are for the solid buildings, not the shanties. So here we go. This tank comes along. 1. And it can pile straight the way through. 2, 3. So shanties don't delay vehicles. Then in reality, there could be all sorts of troubles there. Foot base is the same. 1, 2, you get the idea. Now, jungle is a nasty one. Jungle really slow people up. So, here's some jungle. There we go. So jungle counts as difficult scenery. There it is. Now, foot base is entering it. It's only 1 to go in, but it's 2 more to get out. So 2 more to leave on the other side. You're going for 1 and 2 more to change the other square of it, because each square is different. So that slows things down, but saving roll's really good. Now that's how movement works in terms of points.